Okay, we didn't get a lot out of today's lesson in terms of facts because the information must be backed up, and we're getting just statements that aren't really backed up with evidence really, so we need to focus on that. However, one of the things that was useful is to understand that there were special effects and that they were things like cannons, trapdoors, wires, ropes, harnesses, fireworks, flowers and petals, music, live animals, dogs, bears, bones, intestines and blood. Well, that shows us that when in Hamlet we get this understanding from Shakespeare himself that the 17th century audience went to hear the play, well, that's not the full story. The full story is that they might have gone to hear the play, they might have focused on the poetry of the words and they might have loved that. But in addition to that, they had a lot of devices which were visual, most decidedly visual, and aural in a different way. So aural meaning through the ears, obviously. So, for example, a cannon is aural. You know, when you explode a cannon, you're making an enormous sound, and that's for things like thunder, one would presume, unless it's supposed to symbolise sort of war scenes. But certainly, there's a big element of drama included in that. And we also know from looking at costume that one of the things that they liked as well was the spectacle of costume. So although there was no set, there was very beautiful and brilliant costume for the more noble or aristocratic characters. Louise Montrose apparently said that the style of, or referred to the style of acting in Shakespeare's time, was presentational, and what we need is a definition of what presentational means in order to be able to write about that with any sense of security. But certainly it refers to the speech patterns being heightened. Now from that, what I understand is probably the opposite of what we saw in the Macbeth that we saw, which is what they've done is they've taken Shakespeare's words and they've tried to make them as naturalistic as possible, even to the degree that they used amplified speech by giving the actors radio mics so that they didn't have to project their voices, so they could act in a naturalistic way like they would in a movie or on for TV or something like that. And so what she's saying is that they did do that. They spoke in a sort of heightened way. And I would suggest that we've looked at this idea that, you know, you speak Shakespeare in one way and it is quite kind of exciting and it has a sense of purpose and sort of a rhythm and a direction and a narrative thrust. If you speak it in a naturalistic way, it tends to lose. Now here we are, 21st century, that particular director who directed our Macbeth, he seems to have taken something away. What he gave was in terms of the music and in terms of the dance, which was really exciting and interesting and powerful, but it detracted from the acting because the naturalism tended to lose certain of those things, particularly some of those big speeches that everybody's expecting to be punched home and to be so meaningful. And it also meant that we didn't get as much of a sense of Lady Macbeth's evil, we didn't get as much of a sense of Macbeth's evil, really. So that was problematic. One of the other points that was made today that is useful is about exits. The idea that when you say your exit line, which is the line you say just as you are leaving the stage or just before you're due to leave the stage, that had to be accentuated. And the reason for that is if the actors have learned their lines from foul papers, which is just their dialogue and then a cue line, or a cue line to cue them in and then their dialogue, well, they haven't got anything else to listen for except that cue line. So if they don't get that cue line, they don't come on and the play stops. So certainly what that seems like is when you're getting towards the end of a scene, in Shakespeare's lifetime, the inferences, in all probability, it wasn't as realistic as it will be today. And the reason is that the actors backstage waiting to come on can listen to all the dialogue until they're getting close to their cue. So even if they miss their cue, they know that their cue comes within that timing, and so they'll get on stage in time. So the key thing there is there would have been a difference in the nature of the acting, just based on the fact that they had foul papers in the previous period, and in this period they have the full text.